Welcome to Pay Attention, a podcast guiding you from the chaos of the mind to the clarity of the heart. Here's your host, Holly McNeill.
Hello and welcome. Well, we are well into season 2 with our third episode today. And many of you may or may not know, I am the mindfulness architect, but I also am an architect. I built hospitals and nationally and internationally. But what I really enjoyed is putting things together. So when I started this podcast last year in season 1, I had great guests, but I didn't know a lot about what I was doing. So this season, I'm really excited about curating an experience for you if you take this journey with me over the course of the year. And we started out with Less is More, with Dr. Patel, and then with Amy Camp, talking about how you can't outwork, you can't outthink your thoughts. And so to continue that integration today, I'm really excited to invite a guest on here that we recorded a long time ago, but she fits so well into this arc I'm creating. Welcome, Maira Holzmann. Thank you so much for your patience.
Hey, Holly, I'm super excited to be here. Thank you so much. I look forward to it.
Yeah. We had a great conversation probably like 6 months ago. And I must say, yours is one of the last episodes I've been kind of holding. And so now I'm catching up. And today, I wanted to tell you that yesterday, in particular, I talked to 3 or 4 people really close to me, and they were just feeling awful and devastated for one reason or another. And I'm sure that a lot of that, it's not just in your head, right? It's also in your body.
It's mostly in your body.
It is. And go ahead.
It's mostly in your body, and our thoughts are going to almost immediately, if not instantaneously, dictate how we feel in our body, our connection to our body, and also like the functioning of our system. So we all know this, but the more stressed out you are, the less great that you feel. And when you have these concurrent thoughts that keep circling around and ruminating, your health is going to deteriorate. Your physical health is going to deteriorate.
And that's what I'm seeing with these guys. And actually, we did meet in the studio, so we're going to play a recording here in just a bit. But just a bit of a teaser. She was talking about, and if you can correct me, but early on with Jungian and all, it was all about your thoughts, and it's just now. Maybe not just now, but we're really starting to understand the impact. Without the body's responses, thoughts would be a lot less powerful, wouldn't you say?
Yes, thoughts would be a lot less powerful. And we live in a society where the mind is king, where every thought is believable, every thought seems true.
You don't question them.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a somatic. We're going to talk about this. I'm a somatic psychotherapist that deals with trauma, and trauma isn't in the event. It's in the replaying in the mind. It's in the incomplete survival responses.
Absolutely.
So fortunately, we're 20 to 30 years in of bringing the body into psychotherapy more and more, and now people know all about it, or a lot of people know about somatic psychotherapy.
And today our listeners are going to hear even more about it. So while Maira and I are sitting back, relaxing, watching this recording with you, please feel free to comment, question, and we will be back after this recording, this lovely talk we had. So please take a deep breath, sit back in your body, and enjoy. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Pay Attention. And I have to tell you, as an architect, one of my jobs was to take all the pieces, mechanical, electrical, structural, civil, and help bring them all together to create a building, to create a structure. And on my journey as a mindfulness architect, what I have really found is all the different modalities, I dare I say all, seem to point back to this simple truth, this truth of who we are, this present awareness, this whole body healing. And today I have the most wonderful speaker to help me discuss this crossroads between, spirituality and energy healing, trauma and and the nervous system, clinical understanding, and spiritual transformation. Welcome, Maira Holzmann. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Hi, Holly. I've been looking forward to this interview for quite some time, so thank you for having me.
Yeah, we had a call earlier on, and we just really connected about this. And in fact, I do have someone else coming on to talk about the paranormal and spirituality
Ooh.
crossroads. So there really is a lot of that discussion coming up. So first of all, please tell us a little bit about yourself, the
Yeah.
psychedelic medicine carrier, the somatic healer, just and how did and where you started in your clinical work, or just give us a 2 or 3 minute uh, information on who is speaking today.
Yeah, thank you so much. Well, I am a somatic psychotherapist, and what that means is I really focus on enlisting the body as an ally in the healing process. I've been a psychotherapist for 20 years and been focusing on somatic work for most of my career, so like the last 16 or 17 years. I incorporate therapeutic touch as well as things like somatic experiencing for any of your listeners that know about Peter Levine's approach. And in the last couple years, I have devoted a lot of my practice and my training in psychedelic medicine. So I think of myself as sitting at the crossroads of someone who has a strong spiritual practice using somatic therapy and then psychedelic medicine. So I have been literally flabbergasted and enthralled by the introduction of using psychedelic medicine with my clients because I specialize in working with adults who have early and ongoing trauma, sometimes known as developmental trauma or complex PTSD. So I bring a lot of my somatic skills and training to supporting clients in their journey work.
Just for those listeners that don't know what somatic means, I know I've heard you use the word, or I've seen on your literature the word bodyfulness versus mindfulness. Can you just give a quick intro on what somatic means?
Yeah, so soma, the root word of somatic, pertains to of the body as distinct from the mind. So a lot of
Mm-hmm.
psychology early on with forefathers like Freud and Erickson and people like that, they did a lot of thinking and talking. And so cognitive behavioral therapy was kind of the gold standard for a very long time and is still considered the gold standard when it comes to psychotherapy. But
Mm-hmm.
what research has found is that when people have experienced trauma, especially early trauma, so trauma is defined as any event that overwhelms the body's or the nervous system's capacity to integrate it, and then it changes
Mm-hmm.
nervous system functioning for the worse. So when we
Yeah.
include the body as an ally in the healing process, most of what I'm doing, to be honest, is I'm listening to my clients, but I'm more tracking what's happening in their body. Are they looking at me? What's their posture like? Is it open or closed? Is their breath rate? Are they breathing at all? And I'm
Right.
listening to the body as the sort of main conveyor of information about what's
Mm-hmm.
happening in the room versus just the words that my clients are saying. So it's really focused on taking the body's wisdom and being like, okay, what else is here? Because you're saying one thing, but your body's telling me something completely different.
Yeah.
And in
Yeah.
that gap is usually where people do their biggest healing, is when the mind and the body actually come into coherence or unity.
Yeah, that's thank you for that beautiful explanation. And I truly believe that the thinking, thoughts are merely those thoughts. It's the body's reaction and the chemical makeup that we've created from all those thoughts that reinforce those and make us react the way we do. And often we don't think before we react because the body's jumping in. So I
Correct.
really, yeah, I really love that. And so you mentioned psychedelic medicine in treatment, and tell us a little
Yeah.
bit about that.
Yeah, so I live in Colorado. My practice, Somatic Therapy Partners, is based out of Denver. So in Colorado, there's two medicines that are currently legal or decriminalized. So ketamine is considered part of the psychedelic medicine world, and
Hmm.
ketamine is really helpful for people who have hard to treat depression. So people who have really struggled with depression for a long time. And then the
Hmm.
other medicine that has been decriminalized, which means that if you were walking down the street and someone found, police found you with a bag of mushrooms, you wouldn't get arrested because it's decriminalized, but you can't sell it. So as a result, one of the things that we as therapists are allowed to do is facilitate psilocybin or magic mushroom journeys. And
Okay.
there's a very different medicine than ketamine, but that's what I mean by psychedelics. And then, of
Okay.
course, in the broader scope of things, there's a lot of different medicines that are out there that are currently getting research. Things like ibogaine and MDMA, also known as ecstasy, in terms of street language. And then, a number ayahuasca is very well known in the
Yes.
media.
Yeah.
So those are the psychedelic medicines that are
Yeah.
legal and allowed here in Colorado.
I love hearing that. At first, even with marijuana and CBD, it was just made illegal so quickly by the tobacco industry, just to keep their big stronghold on that
Yeah.
industry, and the health benefits of that was overlooked for so long.
Yeah.
And the crossroads between psychedelic experiences and spirituality, I've heard it described as, they're similar, but the psychedelic is more below your thinking, where the spiritual is more above your thinking. Both are away from thinking, but
Yes.
the psychedelic is temporary, right, and the spiritual eventually opening to your true nature, finding that space between your thoughts, emotions, and feelings is more permanent. But that description makes sense to me. I do think they're very similar, but I would love to hear your opinion on kind of spiritual awareness and awakening and kind of unraveling their neural net through meditation versus the psychedelic experience.
Yeah, so you could certainly get to what are considered altered states or consciousness expanding state, which is the pathway that psychedelic medicine takes the person, and particularly their brain and their brain functioning.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really awesome. And I also don't know how many people have a lot of time to be in modern life when you're trying to, make sure that everyone's getting fed and everyone's needs are getting met. If people have time to be meditating upwards of 10 to 20 hours per week. I'm really happy if I get in an hour a day for 4 days a week. That's like an amazing
That
thing
is a
for me,
lot. That's a lot in
right?
this world. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It is. It's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And so psychedelics are kind of a pass through. It's kind of like a shortcut to get the brain to those expanded states of consciousness
Yes.
that meditation can certainly bring. And psychedelics are not for everyone. We could get into that if you wanted, but the thing I really love about psychedelic medicine, and I've been a trauma therapist for 20 years now, and I've been working slowly with my clients, because what happens to someone, especially when they're young, sets the tone for the rest of the person's
Yeah.
life. And
Absolutely.
people don't know that. They don't know that in the first 3 years of life and then
Yes.
ongoing, if you grew up in unsafe or adverse conditions,
Which
that sets
80%
the
of
tone.
people do, by the way. Sorry, go
I
ahead.
know, exactly right.
Crazy, I know.
So many people don't realize that they're
Yeah,
dealing with the impacts of trauma because this is just the way that they've always been.
right.
So psychedelics help bypass the survival self and the egoic mind, which is very narrow and feeble, quite frankly. And it
Yeah.
opens the person up to a world where they're not just themselves. They're not struggling with their weight or drinking issues. They're not struggling with, inner narratives that are really caustic and really hard on
Mhm.
themselves. They kind of get freed from that aspect of their experience so they can actually experience the truth of who they are, their true nature,
Right.
without all the distortions of narratives and a survival-based physiology. So that's what psychedelic medicine is. And the way that I work in that field, especially with mushrooms, is
Hmm.
that we consider mushrooms having a consciousness. Long before humans were ever on the planet, there was mycelium and they were fungi, and there's a consciousness to it. And so when I'm working with clients in the psychedelic space, I'm encouraging them to partner and connect with the medicine even before they arrive for their journey, so that they can start their inner healer and the medicine can work together to create the highest and best outcomes for their life.
Hmm. Yeah, well, with two things. Well, I can remember the second thing, but everything has a consciousness, right? Everything, when you look at that when you get to the kind of the opposite end of what I call all those thoughts and that trauma and all of that chaos in your head, everything is a vibration. Everything is that energy, and that we're trying to heal. And so yeah, I love that you bring the medicine into that and then ask people to kind of connect with that. But how do they bring that what do the whatever the information they learn or the healing from that experience back to kind of the normal mode for living.
Exactly right. So that's the whole point. I mean, at least in the world of psychedelic medicine, the way that I use it,
Mm-hmm.
the whole the journey itself, which with psilocybin lasts anywhere from like 6 to 8 hours, right, is
Okay.
the tip of the iceberg. So the journey is like, whoo, it just like opens you up into this whole different way of being and
Mm-hmm.
experiencing yourself. And then I have this signature 2 week rebonding blueprint that I work with my clients to help prepare them for something called integration.
Okay.
So the reason why I focus, I mean, further out than the 2 weeks, but from the time that someone imbibes, the mushroom tea to those 2 weeks afterwards, the brain is in a very special, it's called a critical learning period, where it is more sensitive to your environment such
Okay.
that they can mine for the clarity and the things that happen in the journey, and then more easily pivot towards those better habits or more truly aligned, authentic self habits that they wanted to create maybe for a lifetime.
Okay. So you're
So,
saying, so sorry. So you're saying, so after that 8 hours, there's a period of time where the brain is more open, still remains more open, even though you're kind of back in your daily life for you to
exactly
integrate.
right.
Oh, okay. I did not realize
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So there's a researcher. I heard about this on the podcast, and I was like, I don't know if people know that, but so integration is really the work of taking the journey and then being able to apply it to your daily life, right? Something
Right.
as simple as like I had a client who just had a hard time taking her supplements. Like she would forget to take them. Seems like not that big of a deal, except for some of these supplements were hormonal in nature, so they needed to be taken consistently.
Mm-hmm.
And so within those 2 weeks, we were, sort of talking about the journey and I was helping her create a blueprint just for her body, so for her mind, body, and spirit to come into union so she could remember the truth of who she really is, which is pure love.
Right.
And she told me in that time frame that she was just able to do things a lot more easily, like take her supplements, walk every single day, be less harsh with herself in terms of her inner narrative.
Interesting.
So that's where I capitalize on, is like, we're going to be meeting every week, at least one time in those 2 weeks after the journey, so
Oh,
that what you're paying attention to is the thing you most want to be paying attention to, which is healing, wellness, and being your most
right.
expressed,
Right.
authentic self.
Would you say I mean, in some ways, they could potentially, if they're not really paying attention, be more vulnerable in that time after. Yeah.
Yes, that's right. So
Right.
one of the first things that I tell clients in the preparation sessions and then at the end of the journey is, like, best if you could not get on social media or watch whatever TV you normally watch. If you're going to be on a screen, listen to something that's uplifting, inspirational, or expansive to your sense of being. Don't
Right.
watch don't watch documentaries about baby seals in the Antarctic and how they're getting hunted down. Don't be
Right.
scrolling on
Right.
social
Right.
media where you can't control what's going to be in your
Yeah.
feed.
Yeah.
And if
Yeah.
possible, don't go right back into your work life 2 days afterwards. Like, give yourself as much time as you can to just be, so that the medicine can land and your brain can rewire to all of these new ways of being that are more in line with who you want to be.
And I imagine the ego, which is your habits and patterns, it's going to try to, basically erase anything that's not new, reject any ideas that don't meet those patterns, and try to, so you're going to have tendencies to want to, just jump back into it. I'd be
Yeah.
so curious to see the nerve cells that fire together, wire together when you're habit forming, and in meditation, when you don't spend, when you accept those habits, when you see them for what they are and are able to release them or not to react on them, not fight them, those neurons that no longer fire together no longer wire together. So I would be completely curious to see what actually happens to the brain, first of all during that 8 hours, and then kind of, I don't know. I'd love to know, because are they temporary? Are these connections that are so strong and that keep you in fear and keep you stuck just temporarily disconnected, or I don't know.
Yeah, so during the journey, what they found in the studies is that there's a part of the brain called the default mode network, or the DMN. And
Okay.
the default mode network is responsible for your everyday thoughts. So if you're normally attending to fear and worry and self-negation, right, and you're watching TV shows and you're sitting there beating yourself up because you're so depressed or you're so anxious,
Yeah.
that DMN is turned on when you're doing nothing in particular. So when you're
Okay.
not engaged in work or you're engaged in activity, that is firing all the time, which is why people start to spiral when they've got all this free time in their schedule, because those thoughts become recursive.
I've
So
never.
during that 8 hours, what they found is that it turns off completely.
Wow.
That
I've never heard
DMN
of
goes silent, right? And
Wow.
so when that goes silent, all of a sudden people, and this is the reason why I do psychedelic journeys, is
Uh-huh.
because I watch people in a 7 hour journey fully come home to themselves. And I'm making this motion, this centering line from my nose down to my sternum,
Mm-hmm.
because all of a sudden, without all of that noise of how they suck and how they're never going to be good enough and all these other things, they're like, they have space and they've got this healthy form of detachment from the things that they've either experienced or the way that they normally experience themselves. And then it actually rewires the brain if they have
Mm-hmm.
someone that's really supporting them and doing integration. And
Right.
if the mindset and the setting going into the journey was well curated and they were well prepared, so that again, in those 2 weeks and then beyond, everything about everything they ever wanted to do simply just becomes easier. It's like no
Yeah.
problem to go
Right.
see your doctor for your appointments. It's no
Right.
problem for all of the ways that you want to show up. And then, of course, it's consistent practice that allows that person to start to really come home and be in
To
alignment
rewire
with their
it,
true
right?
self. Yeah,
It's habits and practices and practice. That's how the brain learns. That's how it's, the neuroplasticity of it is just
that's
through
right.
repetition. Just through
That's right.
repetition. So two questions. Boy, we could talk about this forever. How long, how many sessions does it take to really see change? I imagine that's individual, but and you said it's not for everyone. So
Yeah.
whichever you want to answer.
So the clients that I work with have been struggling with, I'll call it survival-based physiology from early trauma for most of their lives. So their brain and their bodies are wired into these specific habits. And so my client base tends to do multiple journeys. So they'll do upwards of 3 journeys, spaced one part a month so that the brain can recover. And then we'll see how their integration is going. And then they might revisit again 3 months after their last journey to do another round of journeys. Some
Mhm.
in the literature, they have, especially with veterans, they have found that 80, I think it's 80%, but a high number of veterans who did one psilocybin journey after
Mhm.
that journey no longer qualified for the diagnosis of PTSD. Yeah, that's a
Wow.
remarkable statistic.
That is
That is a
amazing.
miraculous. It's
That is
amazing, right?
amazing.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Right.
it depends on the person. It depends on how acute their trauma is. It depends on how much support they have in their life. Like that's one of the things that I found with my clients is that the people who respond best to the medicine have a
Mhm.
support system, even if it's their spouse or just one best friend besides me,
Mhm.
right? I'm not their best friend, but
Right.
as a supporter. And then, of course,
Right.
there are folks where it's contraindicated, meaning it's not great for someone, for example, who takes psychotropic medications, SSRIs or SNRIs, because that tends to blunt the medicine.
Okay.
People who have dissociative disorders, and then medical issues like high blood pressure,
Okay.
heart issues, liver issues, or kidney issues, those folks would need to get medical clearance from their doctors if they wanted to participate in something like this.
I see. I see. Well,
Yeah.
Colorado is so, ahead of the curve in all of this. Is it the only state that you can practice this in right now?
Oregon is more of a leader than we are because they
Oh,
already have like psilocybin retreat centers that you can go to. And I think California is up there as well, but I'm not sure about that.
California. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So you started out your practice, your journey by dealing with trauma and through clinical therapy,
Yeah.
and I've heard it said that the clinical therapy more puts people in a box, right? You have to almost have like a diagnosis where mindfulness or meditation and even in the psychedelic arena as well is really about kind of uncovering who you truly are, right? It's more of
Yeah.
a spiritual journey than than therapy. I don't know. I mean, is it a combination therapy? And people need to understand their trauma. That's for sure.
Yeah.
But
I mean, I there's, as with anything, Western psychology has its benefits, and it also has its drawbacks. And one of the drawbacks is that it's a very pathological model still,
mm-hmm.
right? So meaning they're going to want to assign a diagnosis and they're going to treat you from that diagnosis
Yeah.
versus something more broader, or with a clinician who has more training, who has a wider menu of training. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, where they can see you as a spiritual being, they know that you're a spiritual being, and trauma has just kind of covered over the truth of who you are. And that's
Right.
kind of the lens that I operate from. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
consistently telling clients the truth of who you are is pure love. It's where you came from and it's where you're going to go back to. And then life happened to your body, because we live in this dense body where, the brain gets really patterned, the body gets really patterned. And the goal of it all is to come back home and to remember the truth of who you are.
Yeah. And that some people you try to say that to, and it's like they can't see it.
No.
Right. I mean, a lot of people that you talk to them, and it's like when you are so locked up in all of that, you really can't see anything else than the fears and the habits and the patterns.
That's
And
right.
and I mean, I started there from a very low point. And that, I mean, why is an architect talking about mindfulness? And that's exactly why. I hit
Yeah.
what's now being recognized as the quarter life crisis, from exactly what you talked about, trauma and creating habits and patterns to survive from. And it took me a while to start to see, again, through meditation. I teach, if you don't have time, to do it 1 minute 6 times a day. Just watch your mind. And
Nice.
so, yeah. And so that, everyone has 6 minutes, I would hope. And that starts to create the pattern to watch. But what you're suggesting, or what we're offering is, I mean, first of all, you have to be ready for it. You have to get to a point where, I don't know. I mean, the point where you can see or start to understand that you're more than your conditioning. So,
Yeah.
so do you find clients that are, I mean, I don't know. How do you know if somebody's ready, or what do you say to someone who's curious about that? Or
Yeah. So first off, if someone's curious about psychedelic medicine, then there's motivation for them to heal or to feel differently. And that
yeah,
motivation can really go a long way. So the people that show up for my free psychedelic assisted psychotherapy education workshops where I talk about psychedelic medicine and preparation and all of the kinds of things,
mm-hmm.
they already know that life can be better, and they're just trying to figure out what the pathway is, right? So that's the
Right,
first
right. They
point.
already know. They already know. So does that mean they hit
Right.
that low point, or they've done some work already, or just
Yeah,
different?
most of the people that I have come into contact with that are interested in psychedelic medicine have tried a lot of different things. And the
Mm-hmm.
clients that are attracted to working with me have literally done all the things, including shamanic journeys, including ayahuasca and psilocybin. But the
Okay.
container of the who carries the medicine is really important. So I'm asking my clients, if they're interested in it when I see them stuck. It doesn't matter how much they meditate, how much they practice self-regulation skills, how much they practice self-compassion. They're just like, I cannot get past this pattern because it's in my body and it's influencing my mind. And
Mm-hmm.
then they do a journey, and I watch them come home, and it's like, it like dawns on them. It's literally like the sun rising, and it's like,
Yeah.
oh, and all of a sudden so one of the metaphors I use is, if you take a diamond and you shine light on it from different facets of the diamond, you're going to see different colors and different prisms.
Yes.
So psychedelic medicine allows the light to be shown on different facets of the person, so that they can be like, oh, I'm not just my stories of being a trash person or being a total asshole or a total bad person, excuse me.
I
I can
know.
actually see that, like, I'll speak for myself. My survival response is always fight. So I'm really good at like confrontation and like, oh, you want to go? Let's go. Like, I don't freeze up, and I certainly don't run away. Right. And I was in
Right.
that pattern for a really long time.
Mhm.
And my own use of psychedelic medicine, especially in ceremonial context and in group context, really helped me see like my worth and like how lovable I was and how loved I was. And
Wow.
I don't know if I could have gotten it any other way, because it's so compelling to be bound to fear. It is so
Yes.
compelling to be bound to fear. And
So,
it's like,
well,
nope,
yeah.
this is it.
Yeah. Well, your brain's trying to keep you safe. That's, that's it's it's a computer, and that's how it's set up. And I talk about people, either it's all about seeing. It is all about what you can see. I talk about either being entangled in your thoughts and your patterns, or looking at them from the place of awareness. And I
Correct.
personally have not ever done any kind of psychedelic journey, but
Yeah.
I have experienced those moments when I look at it like, wow, okay, that's not who I am. I can,
Yes.
and you just see things differently, and you get those aha moments. And I remember the day, it's like, wow, Holly is the name given to this experience, to this love, to this conscious awareness when I was born. But the wisdom was there long before.
That's
So,
right.
what tip do you have for someone who's interested, and what can you leave our listeners with on, kind of, if they want to learn? Obviously, you have your free uh,
Free
uh,
workshop.
workshop. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
the free workshop. But what tip can you give somebody just today about, trying to find that understanding, or to see kind of who they are a little bit differently?
Well, the skill that I teach almost 100% of my clients that walk through the door, and then I remind them of it, I call it joy spotting in the body.
Okay.
So this is kind of the way it goes, and you can do it with me if you'd like or not.
Okay. Okay.
So what I ask, so I'll just invite you in the last week. I want you to think of a good enough or pretty awesome moment. And it
Okay.
doesn't have to be like you won the lottery. It can be like,
Right.
man, that dinner I had was so good, or
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
oh, this beautiful sunset. So I want you to think of some good or good enough experience you had in the last week, and I want you to replay it in your mind. See what you saw, feel what you felt, smell what you smelled, all of those things.
Mm-hmm.
And then as you're doing that, I now want you to send your attention south into your body. And I want you to notice if your body feels any different
Mm-hmm.
or better from having just remembered that recent lived experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes.
Right.
Mm.
So it's simple,
It's
right?
simple. I love it.
It's not always easy, but it's like, oh, my husband made me an amazing breakfast this past
Yeah.
weekend. When I go back to that memory, and you were doing it, you were already smiling, your
Mm-hmm.
breath became a little bit fuller,
Yeah.
right? Your face softened a little bit. Your body
Mm-hmm.
responds to what you're putting in your head. That's what
Yes.
imagination is. So if you're always
Yes.
imagining the worst,
Mhm.
everything's going to brace, right? And
That's
if you're just
right. That's
right,
exactly right. You
exactly
you
right.
project. You perceive the world that you project. Right.
Yes, exactly right.
That's excellent. And I've heard it called objects of meditation. Think of something that
Mm.
makes you joy, and then you can eventually get, like, when you get to know that feeling enough, you don't even need the object anymore to bring that into
Correct.
joy.
Yes, right. Because
So
you're practicing and teaching the body how to do that.
yes, I love that. I love that. Thank you. And so Myra, how do they get a hold of you? What's next steps for them if somebody wants to learn more? And
Yeah.
what if those people that aren't living in Colorado? I mean, I don't know. You can't even. I suppose you can't. I don't know. I guess it has to be physically. People have to be physically in Colorado, I imagine.
Yeah. So some people fly in to do journeys because they're so
Mm-hmm.
invested in the work and they feel connected during our, initial consult. So
Mm-hmm.
they can find me on my, so I run a group psychotherapy practice called Somatic Therapy Partners. So all of the clinicians are trained in somatic approaches to healing, and we
Okay.
specialize in working with clients with trauma. So you can find me there. And also MairaHolzmann.com just launched last week. And so that has,
Excellent.
the podcast that I'm going to be starting that is not in place yet, information
Excellent.
about me and the psychedelic journeys. And so they can find me in both places. If they go to the somatictherapypartners.com website, they can sign up for the free psychedelic assisted psychotherapy educational workshop that we offer every single month. I do it every other month. And then my other psychedelic trained clinician, Carol Lucky, also does it. So
And
those are
that's
the two
online.
places. That's online. Yep. You can attend
Okay,
online.
great. So
It's
anyone
free.
can attend it. Attend it. Great.
Exactly.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for being here today. It is kind of on the frontier of medicine. There's so much more. And we could have a whole nother conversation on, there's so much more to us than this life and
Yes.
in this body. So thank you so much, Myra, for being here today. I think, yeah, there's a lot that points back to this journey we're on, and psychedelic. If the psychedelic journey can augment that, which it sounds very much like it does. I hope that it's more accepted in the
Me
future. So
too.
thank you so much. You're welcome. You're welcome. And thank you, listeners, for joining for another episode of Pay Attention. I am forever learning on this journey and in this podcast. And yeah, and I think that if this spoke to you, if this is something that you might want to do, please, tune in to Myra's new website. We'll put that also in the links. And we're going to have a few more conversations about other crossroads, back to your true nature, to that peace, and to that love that you truly are. So stay tuned and join me for another episode of Pay Attention. Wow. Wow. It was so great to go back and listen to all that. We're in the background and you can just, it's like, yes. And it's funny to watch yourself because you're like, say this, say this, say
It
this.
is.
And I wish I had, usually I have a pen and I write down things that I want to bring up afterwards. So I have a couple of them. First that, I remembered it by damn, DMN. Like, damn, that's the part of you that keeps you stuck.
Yeah.
Yeah. And nobody knows about this. We talked about that before. Why aren't, there's just some simple stuff that we need to know that.
Yeah, you know what's so funny about the default mode network that I was talking about that in that episode is I was giving that education to a client who is preparing to come and do a journey with me, and she was like, "Oh, my demon mind."
Yeah.
And so she took it as demon because her thoughts are so self-negating and catastrophic. And I was like, she also, she's older, she's not working, she's a grandmother, like, so she's in her demon mind all the time. And she's like, well, no wonder I'm depressed. No wonder it's hard for me to get out of bed. I was like, yeah, because you don't have enough social engagement in order for that DMN to go quiet even just for a little bit. And we
Yeah.
know that social engagement, like warm,
Mhm.
meaningfully connected social engagement, expands our life, increases our vitality. And so this is why it's really important to have at least one safe person in your life that you can talk about journeys with or be yourself with. So yeah, demon
Yeah,
mind.
well, speaking of the demon mind, it leads me into the second piece I remembered, I don't think that's a word, but the truth of who we are. I mean, ultimately, I am fortunate enough, I get, with gratitude to have those many hours to sit in that silence. So I've experienced a lot recently, even since our recording, what we were talking about. And most recently come to realize that the good, the bad, and the ugly are all from the same life source. That same life source, that all love, it all comes, that's that connection. So when you can realize that and embrace those negative experiences, you no longer fear them.
It's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really true. And I love hearing that you could get there through meditation. I mean,
Yeah.
part of what makes me effective as supporting people in psychedelic medicine is that I have plenty of experience, ceremonially
Mhm.
sitting with medicine with lots of intention, with really sacred coming to the medicine. And fortunately, I've had access to that so that I actually do know the truth of myself, which is that I'm not a bad person and that bad things did happen to me, but I'm actually pure love. And that's not something I say lightly. That's actually a
Yeah.
lived experience that,
Yeah.
medicine work that I've done over the years has really, it's like the biggest gift medicine work gives. And it's why I do it with clients. It's like,
It's totally amazing, and I've taken the long journey. It's been 41 years since my gut started to clench up, which I recently opened, and in it, by the way, found all my compassion and kindness and a lot more clarity. It was amazing. It's been 25 years since I hit that low point. So yes, I love that the journey is available to people more readily because people don't have that time. My practices, of course, are to try to get is a journey is a collapse of that 25-year journey. But this is even more of a, I don't want to say shortcut, but a way available to people.
that's right.
Yeah, I lived in a Dharma house for a while. I practiced in Buddhism for 5 years,
Mm,
and the monks and the nuns, that's why they take that oath right? Celibacy. They shave their heads. They, just very, very plain clothes to try to get rid of all of those distractions.
That's right.
Right?
Shedding the ego.
Shedding the ego, right? Yeah, I've recently, it sounds crazy to maybe some people out there, but I've recently witnessed a collapse of the ego. But of course, it always tries to rebuild. But even these monks and nuns are human, and that DMN, damn if that that piece of themselves don't hold on more than they would like. So, wow, this has been such a joy to bring this all back again, especially in this arc that we're creating here in season 2. And lastly, before we go, I have to ask for all those fans out there, right? It was ketamine that ultimately Matthew, oh my God, I'm blanking on his last name. Matthew Perry died of,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right.
Yep. So it's something not to take lightly.
Something
Obviously.
not to take lightly. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I could talk for a long time about ketamine and ketamine clinics. I mean, ketamine is really useful. And, he died because he was addicted to it. He wasn't working with someone who was trained in integration and wasn't actually tracking him doing it. There's a lot of places that you can get ketamine, and you just say you have anxiety and they'll send you a prescription.
Wow.
So generally speaking, if anyone that's listening is thinking about doing psychedelic work, 2 really important things is your mindset going into taking the medicine and the setting that you're in, right? So as a trained psychotherapist who specializes in trauma and having, a space that feels safe and is beautiful, and all of these things, that setting really allows your inner healer and the medicine to do the work that's necessary, right? And so
Yes,
that's
the
really
setting is so important, right?
yeah, you don't just pick someone that's like, well, they seem good. I mean, you want to have really like, I should come up with this, but like vetting questions, and also just to really check in how you feel, right? Any listeners that might want to do a journey with me, just notice how you feel when you're just listening, because that feeling state in the body can lead you to safety. And if it's like, nope, I don't like her hair, she's got an annoying voice, you're not going to do that really powerful, transformative, transcendent work. So those are a couple tips around anyone that's listening that might be interested in doing a psychedelic journey, to actually know the truth of who they are and really heal from whatever has happened in the past or is happening currently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Like you said, Myra, we could go on forever. This has been very wonderful and so heart-opening and mind-opening. So thank you so much for joining us. I will definitely. I'm glad we waited till now, because really the audience, whoever's listening out there, the audience was ready, and it was great timing. So thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you,
For
Holly.
your patience and for being here today, and for your work. And let's hope that this expands for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And thank you, listeners. I hope you got as much out of this as I did. You can still comment or ask questions, and Myra or myself will get back to you after the live episode. So, and join us next week. I'm excited about next week. I'm going back to my alma mater, the University of Minnesota, and the Earl K. Bakken Center, the Center for Spirituality and Healing that was established there 30 years ago. And so I'm having a guest that's doing some research, actually, which desperately needed. That line between spirituality and academia, what's research, what can be seen, really needs, I think all the pieces are there, and the research just needs to catch up. So join me for Dr. Anne Van de Winkel from the University of Minnesota as we look at what research is being done for that mind-body connection. But for now, thank you so much. Breathe, remember to feel your body, and have a great rest of your day.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for watching Pay Attention with Holly McNeill. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. See you next week on Wednesday at 10 o'clock Pacific, 1 o'clock Eastern.